Yeah, we're live. As you can see from the photo I have up here, we have our, I'm not sure we're going to call them yet. Right now, we're just calling them boost or vacuum lugs. They're just trees basically with a bunch of fittings on them and a common source basically for the vacuum or boost from the manifold. So the fitting that goes into it is, much bigger. And then you can distribute it with various fittings that you screw into this thing. And that way we can get, here, I'll show you. I'll show you what we got going on. So this works very well. And I can't believe how long I have wanted one of these and that I've never either built one or bought one or just got one from somewhere, because I have run hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of motors on the dyno with boost on them. And I always go through the same thing. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So here's a typical kind of setup. And you can see we have to have vacuum / boost lines running to lots of different stuff. So in this case, we have two wastegates. We have a boost controller. This one was a manual one, but you could also have an electronic one. We have a blow-off valve. We have the map sensor. We have the fuel pressure regulator if we're boost referencing the regulator. So we have a lot of things. We got all, and then we never have the length of lines that we need for everything. So it's splicing them, always a bunch of them together, and then teeing them off into other things, and then finding the right hoses. And then naturally the fittings on each one of these things, the blow-off valve fittings bigger than the ones on the wastegate. That's different than the map sensor. That's different than our air motor regulator. All of these things are just different. And then you are also limited by the number of vacuum / boost fittings that you have on these manifolds, particularly factory ones, because that's a Trailblazer SS that we ran on the 5.3 and the 6.0, which that is the next video coming out. I'm going to be comparing the 5.3 and the 6.0, both NA and under boost, with the same low buck truck camshaft, the same Trailblazer SS intake manifold, and then both with one of our G42 turbos. And you can see what the difference is NA, and we can talk about like which one you would pick and stuff. So that's coming up. That will be the next video. But you can see this menagerie of vacuum lines and fittings and stuff. And it's like, I think of all of the things that I do, other than taking the oil pan off, which I don't like, but the vacuum line situation is my least favorite thing of all of these things. This piece right here is going to make my life so much easier, and it's just going to look better. So we just get one single source. It has a cap on the other side because it's open on both sides. I'll show you more photos and stuff. I think Jimmy might have it up on the site right now. We have these things available. But I'm going to tell you now, for the people that are here and also for the people that are watching this, we bought a limited number of these. And so it will be a little bit before we get them back in stock from our supplier. So if you want these, I think that they're like $33 or $34, $33.95 or something like that. It's pretty inexpensive for what it is, and then for all the fittings and stuff that go along with it. It's a good deal. Like I said, I will have one on all of my motors, because there's no way that I'm doing the T-fitting and splicing and all of that stuff again. And I'm going to have dedicated lines for everything. So all I got to do is come. I've been telling Jimmy this. I just want a box. I show up. I have all my hoses for my intercoolers. I have this with all my lines to it. I connect it to all the stuff. I can connect it to one wastegate. I can connect it to two wastegates. We can sometimes I like actually playing with, because I have dual wastegates on. If we take a look at here, so I have two wastegates, and on this Y fitting, on this Y pipe for a single turbo, sometimes I just use one. Sometimes I can just adjust one and leave the other one with a common reference to it. Sometimes I can run the reference to the top of it. I can juggle the wastegate situation, which is kind of cool. But like I said, these things go to map sensors, they go to wastegates, they go to the boost controller, all of that stuff. All of that stuff takes some sort of source. You need vacuum. And the other thing that happens is, if you, like, for instance, this piece is a good example. This is basically a bleed valve. It's a, for lack of a better term, it's a controlled vacuum leak. And so you don't want a controlled vacuum leak when that's attached to something else, particularly the map sensor. That would be bad. you don't want a controlled vacuum leak when it's teed off of the blow-off valve either. It's going to make the other things that rely on a dedicated boost vacuum source, it's going to make them not function quite the same. The map sensor is the big no-no, but the others, it will affect it as well. So if you're going to do that with this kind of controller, anything that bleeds the boost or the vacuum source out, this has a valve on to stop that on the vacuum side. But anytime you're doing that, you know, you want to have a true reading, especially to the map sensor. But if you have a, you know, a big opening and then a large fitting and then a big common vacuum plenum, as it were, in the setup, and then you're coming off of each one of those, the signal is going to be much better going individually, because it takes a lot to alter the signal with the length of line that's going into each one of these. So it works much better to have this kind of common log deal. And then the fuel pressure regulator, I just snatched a photo went on the line, and this one's a Summit one, but you can see it's pretty typical. They all have a vacuum or boost reference to the top of the diaphragm. That way, when you hit that with vacuum, it pulls the diaphragm up against the spring, and so it lowers the fuel pressure. When you have boost going to it, it pushes down on the diaphragm and holds it closed longer, so it increases it works with the spring pressure to increase the fuel pressure 1-to-1, given this volume and the size of the diaphragm under boost. So it works really good. But I'm excited about this new piece. Like I said, if you're thinking about getting something like this, I really like these things. It is chock full of Billety goodness. So it looks cool. It'll be easy to mount and stuff. And so you should go get it, because my guess, a lot like the turbos, we were going to be out of them like almost immediately. And then right now, because this is all new for us, we're just figuring out what people want and what to order and stuff. We don't want to order 1,000 of these and then go, hey, this is really cool. Now we get to sit on 1,000 of these and not ever having money. So we just we're just kind of, a lot of the stuff initially on this first order, we just test stuff. And so that's what we're doing here. And so if you want this, get it now. And like I said, it's a good piece, and it solves a lot of problem. And so all of your vacuum stuff, you know, doesn't have to look like that, because obviously that looks terrible, and it'll be much better. The wastegates, and then you know, there's also enough of these fittings to go to all of these different things. Some of them you can share, like I don't mind sharing the map sensor and the reference line going to the fuel pressure regulator. That's not going to leak at all, and so those are common ones. It's you know, those are usually the ones that I tee off of, so we don't really, I'm not that concerned about that. Let's see here, where's my photo at? Down. Let's see what you guys got going on. Billety goodness. We have distribution, that's right. It's about time that I had this. I know. I do like some Billety good stuff. Yeah, it is. You could polish that, I guess, if you wanted to do that. Danny, Rich, Jet, good morning. Wrexham. FIC 1000, injectors, Delphi adapters, Hellcat, fuel pump with install. That kit you sell, is it just one injector or all 8? No, if we have an injector and pump, the injector and pump setup is all of the injectors and the pump. Billety good stuff. Just got on and saw this. Successful day. 12 more break-in miles on the Camaro. Heads, cabin intake, rear end upgrade, gears, and new clutch. Heading to the shop on Friday for tuning. Nice. Very cheap for machining material and pre-made parts. Yeah, it is. It is a good deal. If you look at, we've looked online because we do, you know, competition verification, and it's probably half of what everybody else is charging for similar things. Jet, is four of what enough? I don't know if you're looking at the picture, but there's not 4 fittings there. What injector you guys recommending? A 5.3 G42 unflex fuel, the thousands. for wastegate is bigger better. Is a bigger wastegate better? Yes. Also, Bilstein iBox suspension. She's in the weeds. Nice. 33% of total possible likes. Lunchbox. I saw the title and was thinking billet blocks. That's a huge jump in machine work. Yeah, no, we don't have that. I have done some videos on billet blocks. I did one with Mahovitz on the billet coyote block that he did with the guys from, is it BAE or somebody? The guys that do the billet, I think they're the guys that do the billet Hemi blocks also. That was really cool. That's really nice. Sean, did you go to the Gulfport Dragway after the Cars and Coffee on Saturday? I was running my truck. How did the truck do, WFO? WFNO? Nav sensor. That one's a Holly. Turbo-y goodness. Wastegate goodness. It's amazing how much power this little thing makes. It does good stuff. That thing has seen a lot of power. I think that's the one that we used on the most powerful Honda that I did. And that was used, I think, on all of the, it was used on all of the Big Bang motors. So that's all got the high horsepower stuff on it. If I can get a used Turbo Smart wastegate, 50 millimeter and 60 millimeter, depends on what's available. Would either one of them be good for that GTX 35? Yes. You might get away with a single 50. A 60 definitely would work. It was slow. The air temps were warm. 140-degree manifold air temps from sitting in line to get the runs. Is that a multi-port vacuum port manifold? Yes, it is a, well, it's both vacuum and boost, but yeah. Yeah, and the fitting that feeds it is bigger than that. We just had one of those on there, and then there's a cap for the other side. Or you could run another port off of the end also. Ran across Nick, brought out his Viper. Map sensor looks like a Vauxhall GM. It is. It's a, I don't know. I don't think it's a Vauxhall one, but they do use that. GM uses that on the 3800 stuff too. The LS ones though are different. Will doing 50-pound injectors do anything for a heads cam 5.3? Yeah, it would do a lot for it because it would give you the amount of fuel that you need to make the power with heads and cam on a 5.3, because the stock ones won't do that. Injectors by themselves do not add power, or at least I have never seen them do that. What they do is they give you enough fuel to support the power level that you're making. Do you know how much horsepower the fuel pump you sell will handle? I looked it up, but many different answers. On a boosted application, probably around 700 at the tire. You need 2 of them if you're going to make a lot of power. Got my new turbo today. Very fast delivery. Happy. I'm glad you got that. Yeah, Jimmy's on top of stuff. They have an ACR in the shop. I like Vipers. I particularly like the GTSs. Sold. Do you have map sensors or blow-off valves coming to the site? Yeah, I don't know about map sensors. Now that you mentioned that, we'll look into that. And I'll talk to Jimmy about that, because I just ordered a map sensor for dyno testing, and I wanted the GM LS specific one so that it just plugs right into the harness. So I will look into that. We definitely have wastegates. I want to test them and make sure that they do what the Turbo Smart ones do, because I want them to work properly. Otherwise, we won't sell them. Blow-off valves, I don't think we've looked at, but that would be a natural kind of thing. Sadly, some takeover kids got us kicked out of the venue for the meet. Uh-oh. I saw they all did burnouts and got the next one canceled. Engines seem to like having lots of exhaust, secondary diameter, which the wastegate essentially becomes when wide open. I discovered the vacuum is only as much as the least vacuum port is using. Like if you're using it for PCV, also, it has to be as low as that. Not sure I know what you mean by that. Need a finger port to take the engine pulses. that is really cool stuff. The scary thing isn't having your finger in there. Seeing that move was amazing. But straddling the motor, I'm glad that they built a shield to protect your important bits. Mark, it's a vacuum boost port. So you supply to the end of it, basically, a big port from your manifold, and then you can run vacuum off of all of these other things to things like app sensors, wastegates, boost controllers, fuel pressure regulators, all that stuff. So that we don't have to splice and T-fitting the heck out of all these hoses and stuff. My car has a Walbro 460. It can support 430 kilowatts on a 544 valve. Yeah, the amount of power that something will support NA on gas is wildly different than it is on E85 under boost. Big injectors alone, without the need for them, would probably be fine tuning, less precise. Yeah, but you have to go, and I'm sure you'd agree, Neil, you have to go so far out of the range to get a big injector where that actually becomes a problem. Like we've run 1500 cc injectors on 4.8s. NA 4.8s works fine. I don't know that it would be ideal, and it would work better on E85 than it would on pump gas. But you have to go a long way. Like if you put 80s on a motor, it's not going to tune any different than it would if it were 24s. Deca 80s can be trained to tune with a factory GM ECU at idle. RHP build incoming. Get the likes going. Yeah, get them likes up. Yo, those manifolds are not uncommon in non-car circles. Do you mean boats? Or just has manifolds for other things? Far out of range, yeah. Yeah, I don't think guys are going to want to drive around on 2,000 or 2,500 cc injectors. That's where, if they did want to drive it, like for drag and drive stuff, I think that would be where stage injectors would come into play. Injectors are worth more than a 4.8 in industry stuff. Yeah, for air fittings. The vacuum barb fittings are pretty small for industrial stuff, but it still works good. I think I'm most excited about this. Can't wait to have that be the norm. Norm! Rather than, hey, let me go through and, because every time you put a motor up, it shouldn't be like the first time that you ever put a motor up where you're searching around for everything. It should be like, look, we run lots of LSs here. But because of what I do, it's stuff like this that's weird and unusual, and it seems like doing the vacuum lines, it takes as long as putting the turbo stuff on. Stage one's big injectors further away from the valve. GM36 V6. Direct injection, 11.3 stock cam. I'm putting a carb on it. Okay, like you would. 93 octane. Yeah, that should be fine. It's a 2013 Malibu with hopefully just electrical issues. Tests instead of parts can. Okay. Are you just seeing if it has compression and stuff? Or are you just making sure that it runs and spins over? And If you're just running it to see if it runs, you can't really hurt something at part throttle. It checks out the last 20% takes 80% of the time. It does. And the thing that I hate is, like, I don't mind putting stuff together, cam swapping or doing that kind of stuff, but walking around and looking for stuff, that's not good. That seems like a waste of time. We've seen the new low profile from TSP. I wonder if it makes torque because of short runners. Short runners do not make torque, no matter what they are, no matter who makes them. They all do the same thing. They will be much more the same than they will be different. Short runners, high RPM. Long runners, lower RPM. Looking for the spanner I just had. Which one? Let's see. There. Seeing everything else is fine. Yeah, thinking ECU has an internal short. We were thinking the cat was plugged at one point. I've run across that before. It does not run good if you've got a plugged cat. Do you know, or does anyone know, what motor mounts I would need to drop this LS? I'm building a 98 F-150 single cab. I Googled F-150 LS motor mounts, but I just got a bunch of Chevy stuff. Does anybody know, for Charlie Brown Gaming up there, like mounts for an F-150? Do you know of any low-profile air-to-water intakes that might fit under the C4 hood? You want an intercooler? I don't know if like a Holley low ram and then a TSP, or not TSP, a TIC intercooler. You should call them and ask them if it fits under a C5. Got the motorcycle running today. Oil pumps, scavenges, 5-to-1 compression. Takes a serious kick to get it to spin. 1930s BSA. Oh, that's very cool. That's definitely other guys. The mount you need is a welder. Harbor Freight sells them. So make your own. I mean, they have them for a Fox body. How different is that truck than a Fox body? Did you say a 6-liter L98 with a T56 on it is decent at which would be approximately 3,500? Yeah, I don't know pricing on stuff. I don't know what stuff goes for right now. But a T56 sells for a lot, so that's already good, and a 6-liter L98 is good. I would think that if you were buying one, that's probably a good deal. How should I size an air-to-water intercooler? Any thoughts on flow rate through the intercooler? I don't, unless, do you have a flow bench? So it would be, unless you have a flow bench to compare it to, that's not relevant. I don't ever remember flowing an air-to-water intercooler. We just go by size. Like the one that we have that you see there, we've done 1,000 horsepower with that stuff. Kind of gives you an idea. Obviously, it's not free, which should be the second best outcome. Short runner is best for high RPM, so like Pro Charge stuff. Well, for anything, and it doesn't have to be a Pro Charger. It could be a turbo, could be NA, could be whatever. But the short runner stuff is tuned to optimize power production at a higher engine speed than longer runner stuff. Variable 2-length inlet manifold on a Rover was troublesome, at least on a car. I think it was mainly because of poor execution and manufacturing. A lot of times, getting like a sliding trumpet or things like that, like for a Le Mans race, that's pretty easy to keep it working for that. But for a production car, given what they do and how stuff gets gummed up and not taken care of and stuff, water flow rate, I would look at the fittings. I think you need -12 stuff probably. ProCharger stuff would still benefit from long runners to even out the rising boost curve. Well, a ProCharger stuff, just because it has a rising boost curve, doesn't mean you can't have your motor make peak power at 6,500. Even if the boost is still going up, if you have a cam and an intake manifold, it won't continue to rise, even though the boost curve will continue to rise. It won't continue to rise in terms of peak power. Like, it won't make peak power at 10,000. So it will always, you could have the motor set up so that it wants to make power in a given range and then just add boost. And if you're adding boost with a ProCharger, you just still have a rising boost curve. I really think it's really cool. I think the valve springs are lubed by the crankcase vent. It's a side valve engine, air-cooled, iron everything, 4 piston rings. Okay. Plenum ordered. There you go. Nice. At some point, moving water through an intercooler too fast will lessen the ability to actually cool down the air temp. You think that that's the case? Now, I understand the case on a radiator, but a radiator is different. I watched the beginning of the live stream since I came in late. I just ordered one. I've been looking to get one, and here we are. There you go. Lunchbox is in the house. Place timing mark at 6 o'clock makes removing oil pan easy on a Chevy truck 454 for a rear main seal. Are you saying that puts the crank throws in a favorable position? If it's also passing through the radiator engine more often, don't worry about it. What happens when you put a cam best for torque on low mid RPM with short runner intake and some kind of boost? Will a cam make up power for low end? Well, it's hard to get a cam to make power at low engine speeds. But you cannot, and this is what you're asking, you cannot have the best of both worlds. You can have one that does a little bit better there, but what you'll get is, like, if you take a low buck truck camshaft and then run it with a Trailblazer SS and then run it with a Holley low ram, what you have is a combination that loses power through 90% of the curve and makes more power at the top. And so whenever anybody looks at that, they don't go, oh, well, the cam made more power down low and the intake made more power up top, so that's a good combination. They just look at it and go, I wish I had the long runner intake manifold on there. Moves the front crank throw upwards, clearing the pan. Okay. That's good. That's a good trick. We like that. We like when we make stuff easy. Here's our manifold up on the stage. I just remapped my electric car. Nice. What I mean is I updated the sat nav. If you want low down punch, add a positive displacement blower. That's a good example of where you're combining low speed torque from boost and also a short runner intake manifold for power on the top. It's just that a positive displacement blower is just not terribly efficient at high speeds and high pressure ratios, but still, it's kind of that combination. I think the variable manifolds on road cars need to last 10 to the 8th cycles caked in dirt. Racers only need them to last 2 to 24 hours. 10 to the 3rd. 10 times 10 times 10. Is that what that is? 10 cubed. Yeah, getting them to Getting them to last forever, or 3 or 4 or 500,000 miles, it's a lot harder to do. Getting them to last like a race, that's better. And then you know, maintaining them and changing the O-rings or whatever you have to change, lubing them up, making sure they're all working properly. That all works good. So for a car like Corvette, would you say a power curve is best higher in the RPM range, and for a truck mid RPM? Well, if you look at factory stuff, that's exactly what they did. I mean, they never did high RPM stuff on a factory Corvette, other than like an L88 or a ZL1 kind of thing. But even with that, they still had dual plane manifolds on them, so they weren't, it wasn't like 7,000 or 8,000 RPM. But if you look at the power curve and particularly the camshafts of the car versions of the LS motors versus the truck versions of the LS motors, the trucks all got milder cams. In this case, they both got long runner intake manifolds. None of them got short runner manifolds. But the cam timing was the biggest thing. And usually on the trucks, they got lower compression too. For sturdy cable tie mounting holes, yeah, those are Allen bolts. I guess you could tech screw it or however you wanted to do it. But what I think most people will do is they will use the supplied hardware with the nuts back behind it. They'll mount that, drill the holes through their firewall, and then mount it to the firewall. Yeah, zip tie stuff is really good. Zip tie stuff is permanent. I have lots of stuff that we put on like at Bonneville or somewhere that we put on with zip ties, and then we solved the problem, and then we forgot about it. We're like, yes, it's been, we've been out here for 4 years or 5 years. This is still there. It's still permanent. The Sprint was a good example of that. When I put and we just set it in there. I just set it in the engine compartment. It's like, it's just setting right here. It'd be fine. When I put I forgot it was a 1 gallon or 2 gallon fuel tank, spare, gas can for our intercooler reservoir. We're good though. Our 706 heads we're CNC porting are better off getting TFS heads for something from TSP. It depends. You can make a lot of power, and the 706 heads, you can make them flow basically just about what any sort of aftermarket head flows. But if you're running boost on it, it doesn't have thick decks like the aftermarket heads do. Temporary fix, it gets left. It does, because that's how my mind works. Is we have a problem, we solve the problem, that gets pushed out of my mind. It's not there anymore. I have other things that are coming in, and there's only a limited amount of space, so I have to filter stuff through. I have to solve problems and then get to the new problems. A race car challenge is to make the tiniest, thinnest piece of material to only just barely break at the end of the race. There you go. It's got to be that light. We got to add lightness. Richard, which intake manifold would be best for a blow through with cathedral port head on a drag race application using factory heads for now? If you're doing a blow through, it's got to be carbureted, right? I mean, most guys probably go with a single plane, but the dual plane does what the dual plane does. I don't know what RPM range you're running when you're doing this, but most guys would err toward the single plane. I myself am scared of both of those, having done 802 sensors on them, and I don't like either of those. Nor honestly do I like the factory manifolds either, but because when you run 802s on stuff, you find out things that are like, yeah, that's not even. Yep, Colin Chapman, quote for the win: add lightness. Although every racer would also tell you, don't make it break, don't make it that light, and then also add lots of power. I remember talking to, I think Dennis Ozzie told me this. He said, yeah, guys will say that, I think we're talking about Road America. Yeah, this is a horsepower track. Lime Rock, that's a handling track. He said they're all horsepower tracks. You never want to give up horsepower. Depends on the rules of the budget. Does that part need to last a certain mileage or impact resistance? What makes them last way longer? Well, and OEM stuff has the R&D and development on that aftermarket stuff does not have. That's why I like my Z06. Has some lightness and some power. Yep, that is a good combination. That's why I like the Civic VX, because it had lightness, had light wheels, had light bracketry. It was a light car. Not as light as the Sprint, though. not anywhere near as light as the Sprint. The Sprint is and the Metro. Definitely lighty. Even ice racing needs power. That's right. And drifting, all of it. Everything is, because we can always come back on the throttle if we somehow have too much, which you can exiting a corner. You got to learn how to drive. You can have too much power. But, you know, anymore, the guys that would do it with traction control. You know about the free software for Gen 3 LS ECUs called Universal Patcher. Works with OBD Link SX. Might be wrongfully assuming you're going carb for easier tuning. Say drifting is the most fun with less power and bad tires. Drifting takes really good car control, that's for sure. It's not the fast way around the track, but you know, I guess the guys are doing it for style points. Drifting is fun. Had VX wheels on my Civic. Could lift the rim and tire easily with one hand all the way from the body. Yeah, they're very, very light. I thought the gas cooled attempts like methanol. It does. But it doesn't do what an intercooler does. Because when tires cost $20 each and you use half a tank of fuel thrashing your car for a whole day, that's great on the wallet. Yep. You can spin your tires coming into the braking zone at the end of the longest straightaway. That's when you have enough power. That's what Mark Donahue said. If I can't spin the tires all the way down the front straightaway, I don't have enough power. Front-wheel drive drifting is fun. Just need 2 McDonald's trays under the rear tires. I've done that before in parking lots. That's fun. Going carb, CSU 750. I'm looking at single plane, but I don't think I would need a monster single. I'm shifting at 65 to 7. Yeah, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. It's all good. You got this or this. I need to come up with a clever name for that, for this piece. So the picture could be used as vacuum tree for Mustang. Yes, that's what it is. It's a vacuum boost tree, basically. The Mustang, a 5-liter Mustang, already has that. In fact, they have a thing that's not used on that tree on the firewall that says B for boost, that's capped. I don't know if that's for barrel or what the deal is. What's the little manifold thingy? That's it's a boost log, boost vacuum log. The Hoover Mark II. That's good. On one side, we'll write this thing sucks, and then on the other side, write this thing blows. Will using wet nitrous shot on a standalone fuel system with methanol on pump gas be any better than just going E85? Better how? Better for what? What are you trying to do? Looks like one of the equalizer things for ITBs. Yeah, where they have them all individual, a common port for all of them, so you can get a common map sensor reading. The billet boost log. Yep. Boost vacuum manifold. Yep. And the boost comes first. Yeah. Donnie, you said that. Yeah, that's from his book. Well, I mean, he said it, so it's everywhere, but it was in the Unfair Advantage. Or decent brake pedal. Vacuum sausage. It's a normal compressed air thread on it. Those are just barbs. Super Richie, there we go. Better power, lower. Brian, you're gonna try to run pump gas and then spray methanol with a nitrous solenoid or something? How are you gonna get distribution for that? This thing we've written on a CA was on the prop shaft of a Mark II Rescort. If you can read this, please invert. There you go. Did you write it on the bottom? Yeah, please flip me over. Pump gas will be better than E85 for long-term storage and fuel mileage. It does better at lubing the fuel system, but that's about it. The Barbinator 9000, that's good. Barbarella. Holy boost bar of Antioch. There we go. A little holy grail. And the number to be 3 and not 1. Be they not 1, be they not 2. E85 definitely requires winterization. If you have a flex fuel sensor, you just run E85 and then you just go run 91 or whatever your octane is, and depending on where you are in the country, and then you just run that for a while and then just leave that in there if it's going to let it sit. We're using 2-cycle oil in very low amounts with E85 effect sensors. I don't know. The only one that I would be worried about would be the O2 sensors, I think. St. Attila raised the hand grenade up, saying, "Oh Lord, bless the hand grenade." Does it? Oh, good. So many quotable stuff. E85 gums up stuff when it gets cold or when it gets old, but not cold. When it gets OG. So it's a nitrous intake manifold, directly port. I was thinking about using pump gas and meth on the standalone fuel system for nitrous, like a 5-gallon. Yeah, I don't know what percentage of methanol you're doing versus what percentage of gasoline you're doing, but if you have E85, you should just use E85. If you want to do it as a blow through, you can do it as a blow through. What I recommend is using good fuel and using an intercooler. Be they not 2, and let's continue. Getting to 3. Yeah. Oh, I know, that's good stuff. I think the Black Knight's my favorite. Cut off your arm. No, you haven't. It's right there. I've dealt with wuss. He's not the Messiah. That's right. Hydraulic part supplier have those kinds of manifolds. 2-stroke oil won't hurt anything other than your spark plug. Could theoretically change your O2 readings, but it'll lube up everything it comes in contact with. Yeah, I just don't know how much you have to get the positive benefits, and then like is there a sweet spot in there where you get the positive benefits and then don't get the negative benefits? Is that even possible? Just put a flesh wound. I've bested you. No, you haven't. Come here. I'll bite your head off. Okay. Well, got a draw. You're a loony. None shall pass. Sport mod guys on dirt run 50 to 1 and leader bikes on E85. Scared of bad E85 and spring. And have you ever turbocharged an inline 6-cylinder? Yes, lots of them. The 292, for instance. The 4200, the Atlas motor. Various Nissans, L series. Don't some rotary guys run 2-stroke oil instead of the OEM system? How do you tell if he's the king? That's right. Well, you're not my king. I didn't vote for you. Some tart in the lake lobs you a scimitar. That's the basis for government. Come see. What is it? Come see the repression inherent in the system. That's a dead giveaway. Have you ever been so drunk that you dynoed a goat? No, not dynoed. Always had oil injection on my rotaries. Yep. I'm going with the blow through. It's got my bare block. I run a few cups of 2-stroke through my truck twice a year. You can do it on my bikes. Don't be silly. Dynos are for horses. We mix 2-cycle methanol for lubrication. I run 2-stroke and 2nd-gen RX-7s because bad oil metering pump. That pump injects oil, so I pre-mix it for protection. Do you shut the pump off when you do that, Christopher? Can you run the 6-liter with the GTX 45 turbo and a G42? You want to run twins, but you want to run twins that are different size? That's not going to work. Currently trying to set up a draw through on a 281 International truck, 3,600 RPM, max boost. You're going to run 8 pounds at 3,600 RPM? Bring out your dead. I'm not dead yet. I am but a shrubberist. Hang on, guys. I'll be right back. Okay. I'm back. Somebody picking up a car. I was helping somebody out. I did some brakes. As it turned out, they didn't even need brakes. She thought that they needed brakes, so I was trying to help her out. Weird question for everyone here. Do you think there would be any demand for a vacuum canister that did timing retard like an old Corvair? You mean like the vacuum advanced boost retard stuff that they do on distributors for the like on the Sprint, the one that the Sprint had? On the electric oil meter and pump, you have to remove the chip off the ECU. Bring out your dead. Yeah, that's why they were making fun of it, because it was a real thing. You see Eric's latest video where he put the wrong pulley on the blower? I haven't seen it. It's possible to get an LS 180 degrees at a time. Yes. No, you said at the beginning you were running both a 5.3 and 6.0 with a G42. Can you run a single GTX 3584 also? I can't now. We've already run the test, but I can later. Is there a benefit in having separate exhaust flow from bank to bank like how Summit turbo manifold? I don't understand your question, Brian. I don't know what you mean. Eric spent some unexpected money on his dyno day. Did he put the party pulley on it and make a mistake? Brian, I don't know which manifold you're talking about, and I don't know what you're comparing it to. Why wouldn't different size twins work? Wouldn't it be the same as only running a turbo off of one bank, or would the smaller turbo cause too much back pressure when the large turbo cut up? That's not the problem. The problem is not on the hot side. The problem's on the cold side. When the smaller turbo spools up before the big turbo does, it backfeeds the other turbo. And then when the big turbo spools up, it backfeeds the smaller turbo. Unless you have a way to regulate the boost and stop that from happening. Vacuum advanced boost retard cancer, so you don't have to do a BTM, EC, or otherwise. Yeah, if you have I mean, they already make those. I don't know if they still have them. But it's a diaphragm and a canister, like the Sprint had that. But the distributor has to be able to do that too, though. It has to have enough movement to make that happen. What blow-through carb would you recommend? Stock bottom end Ford 302, 500 horsepower. I don't know who has an inexpensive one. I think that Quick Fuel has one. They might have a 650 or a 750. It would be fine. What engines run distributors? I think he's talking about distributor engines. Can't wait for you to start the chassis down stuff. I know it'll be good. Smaller isn't going to hurt you. 600 will be fine. Eric wanted to step up the boost on his 871 big block. Went from 6 PSI to 22. He was aiming for 8. Just missed it by that much. He had to make a big change to go from 6 to 22. Did he swap the pulleys? Did he have the giant one on top and the small one on the bottom, and then he just swapped them from top to bottom and just went all in? What are the symptoms of bad cam sensor? I'm having trouble with backfiring. I'm running a 6014 box. What are your thoughts? Are you sure it's the ignition box and that it's not a carburetor problem? Some turbo manifold separates the exhaust from the right bank and the left bank. Do you mean like a twin turbo setup? Like which ones are you talking about? Summit sells a number of turbo manifolds, so I don't know which one you're actually asking about, or ones you're asking about. Are you talking about the exhaust manifolds, one on each side, and the one on the side has a divider in it? If you're talking about that, you don't need to do that. And you don't need to run a divided turbo on 4 cylinders of a V8. So essentially, you'd be better off doing a compound setup if running different sizes, or a sequential where they do, Nathan, where they do what I'm talking about. So you have most or all of the exhaust energy going to the small turbo, and then that small turbo is feeding the motor, but not back feeding the big turbo, and then you bring the other bigger turbo online. Or you could do it with 2 same size turbos and do that same kind of sequential thing that I'm talking about, where one, you're just using one and it's small enough that it's fairly responsive, and then you just add another one of those, and now you have 2 of them, so you have twice the amount of flow potential to make that happen. That works. Or twins that are the same size where you don't have a differential. Did have a lot of trouble with pinging until the first MSD BTM. It's not running fairly good. Did ring gap on a second build. I should probably do more research on the Summit turbo manifold. What you should do is not worry about that. That's not a concern. Just get a manifold, mount the turbo on it, and then good things will happen. His first thought should have been, why does the new top pulley look so small and the bottom one so big? Why are the pulleys touching? It's just a gear drive with the big one off the bottom. 22 pounds would be a lot, and it'd be way worse like on the load-in. As they were rolling into that thing, they should have saw how the boost was getting to be bad. It's a single turbo manifold. Well, if you're talking about the one that they make where they have one on one side and then the exhaust from one side feeds under the motor and goes over the other side, and then they join together to an outlet, that's not a good setup. I mean, it is a good setup and it works and it packages nicely. It's just not that great for flow the way that they had that setup done. I bet it was fun for a bit. 871 block, 1,000 foot-pounds could be fun. Hi, what are you doing? I know it's almost time. I know it's almost time. You guys are probably getting hungry, huh? We have 4 minutes left, okay? Just four, and then we're good. Okay. Is that okay? You want to come up? No, you don't want to come up? I know. Do you have any KA24? No, I don't think I've ever run one on the engine dyno. Well, I haven't run one on the engine dyno. I'm certain of it. Richard, I scoped my Chevy panel truck of the 454Cs from sitting. Boards are clean, very light spot surface rust. Nothing that would be seized in the engine. Could it be seized in the bell housing? Yeah, it could be. Is the trans in gear? I mean, is it locked in gear or something? The other thing, it could be down on the bottom. Something could be broke on the bottom end, a rod or piston, or maybe not piston, but a rod or something. The bottom pulley look like a wagon wheel, and the top pulley look like a thimble. What could possibly go wrong? Well, we just welded dimes together for the top. That should be fine, right? And on methanol, well, that at least they had the right fuel. Josh, what did you need advice on? Oh, I don't know what else to tell you on that. You need to figure out what stopped. You need to figure out what's holding it. That's the only thing that I can tell you. That's the only thing I'd be able to tell you on email. I can put my email down, but that's the only thing that I'd be able to tell you, is that you need to figure out what's locked up. If it's not rust on it that's stopping the thing from moving, something else is physically stopping it. Disconnect everything from the back of it and see if a bolt has come out of the flywheel, or maybe there's a bolt that went in through the flywheel and is hitting the block. You got to figure out what it is. You're probably gonna have to drop the pan and see if there's anything in there. Maybe when the crank probe came down, maybe it's hitting the oil pump drive shaft or something like that. I don't know. Was the 11.8 to 1 compression nice for a big block running methanol? I don't think it needs to be that high for a blown big block, if that's the one you're talking about. Richard, you questioned if I was trying to run 8 pounds of 3,600 on the International. Yes, that's what I'm trying. What concerns you? The concern I have is that running boost at that RPM is fairly low. And so you just got to make sure that you have the timing right and take detonation into control there. So log manifold better than Summit turbo manifold, single turbo setup. I do better for what? We got to go back to let's just solve your problem. What are you trying to get done here? Have you ever tried twin turbos that have same cold side but different hot sides? Yes, I've changed ARs if that's what you're asking. The K24s have a weird rep. They're considered a tractor engine by the SR20 people, but the people that like them say they're super durable. Seems like timing or something, because I have an 85 carb and switched to a gas carb just to make sure, and same results, but keeps bringing up cam sensor fault. Okay. I guess you can try another cam sensor. Take a look at the plug. Make sure the plugs haven't, like that the pins haven't pulled out or anything. How is it 225, 238 for 6 liter? It works good. Richard, if I send you a stock bottom end Gen 4 6-liter 5-bar map sensor and a fuel system, would you be willing to do another max effort on the Big Bang? No. I already have another map sensor for it, so that's not the map sensor is not the problem anymore. I don't think I would do it on that block again. That block is leaking water from somewhere. I think it's out of one. I don't know if it's the heads or if it's one of the bolts. So I'd have to get a completely different one to do it. Probably got the timing off. Check the timing chain. Or my first methanol dragster. No, a complete motor. What's the best stock cam for low end? The one that makes the most power at 2000 RPM is an LM7 LS cam. No, I'm not interested in somebody sending me a motor, but thank you for the offer. I want to spool fast on 6-liter. Yeah, I don't think that that's going to be a problem. Spend the extra money. Brian, I think that you're worried. I would be more concerned about fitment than I would be about which turbo system is going to work best. The turbo is going to dictate the power. So you have a motor, you have a turbo. The exhaust is the least of my worries. It's a 6.2 Big Bang. Nope. Yeah, not interested in doing an aluminum 6.2 block. My advice to anyone difficult to diagnose issues is use something like a picoscope. I thought that a Gen 4 6-liter 5-bar map sensor. Yeah, I thought he said it was a 6-liter. I've been trying to replicate that test, but I can't find any dyno shop willing to let you do that. You can't find somebody willing to let you run a twin turbo 6-liter on something? You got 1 more minute left. Add to the stage. Turbo-y goodness. The twin 70s spool fairly quickly. I don't know which ones they are, so I don't know. I'd have to know more about exactly what turbos they are, and really I'd have to test them to see how well they work, because there's a big variance in 170 to another 70. .454 is probably seized mains. I've seen a lot of big blocks that are not oiled properly. Yeah, it could have welded itself, I guess. You see when the thrust goes out on those that, but if the gentleman's asking about the big block, if you can drain the oil, does it have a bunch of bearing material in the oil? We're going to go with Huron Speed hot side kit. Yeah, just pick something that fits and hopefully will last and doesn't leak. But I don't remember what kind of power you're trying to make, Brian. Were you trying to make a lot? The stock truck manifolds work really good. You can make a lot of power with those. You can make 4-digit power stuff. I don't remember if you were trying to make 1500 or what the deal was. Oh, the glitters is not gold. Yeah, not with bearing stuff. I do it on a chassis dyno, but it won't hold enough power to max one out. It'll just spin. Yeah, that can be problematic with that kind of power level. $1,200 on the Summit. Okay. Yeah, you don't need to be worried about your exhaust manifolds. Stock truck manifolds will easily do that. I've never seen the other ones that you're talking about, but I'm sure that they probably would too. I definitely would not pick the Summit ones, that Summit one with the single outlet for that power level. that would be restrictive on that. Definitely be restrictive. Wastegatey goodness. I think that the Summit one was more designed for guys swapping turbo stuff, you know, for swap engines and stuff, but not for like big power stuff. I've seen guys do lots of work to those, but I don't know why you do that. All right, Brian, go hit it, man. 10 reps of 300 on the bench, or a curl if you're if you could do that. Started reading up on it yesterday after asking you about it yesterday. You ever tested Tsunami V2 on LS? Just wondering how they do. I don't know what that is. Is that a cam? So I guess the answer probably would be no. I have an LQ9 twin 76s, made 1070 and 1,400 foot-pounds of torque on a hub dyno. Oh, on a Turbo 400. Okay, so that's a converter flash number. 12 bolt, 18 pounds, 17 degrees. Will chassis dyno number show lower numbers? I don't know about that hub dyno. I don't ever remember running anything on a hub dyno. 18 pounds on that. But does it have a cam in it and a like what's the rest of the motor? A 1,000 horsepower at the tires on 18 pounds. That's got to be a pretty good motor to begin with, I would think. So So is the NA motor making 480 at the tire? Do you have any 300 Ford parts? I've never run a 300 Ford. Texas Speed Cam. I'm not familiar with that. I don't know what the specs are. Would it be crazy to mount a ZX14R in a shifter cart? No, that would be cool. It'd be a handful. A 240 horsepower one would be pretty pissed off. Have you messed with the 6014 box? Yeah, we'd run the MSD stuff a lot. Look at the dyno sheet. Look more like converter flash. I don't know if the hub dyno has problems calculating converter flash to where the chassis did not. The converter is still going to act up even if even on a chassis dyno, the wheels are not slipping, the dyno and the rollers are not slipping. So hub dyno would be the same thing. What's happening is the RPM is jumping up relative to engine speed, and so you get a weird reading. It's the ideal cam size to run a single turbo 6-liter and maintain low end power. What is your desired power output, Cameron? Did you tell me? I don't remember. I can tell you we can make way more than 1,000 horsepower with a 5.3, that L33, and a low buck truck camshaft. That's the camshaft I recommend to almost everybody. Even on a 6-liter, that camshaft will easily go into 4-digit power level. That's all the turbo. So like on our test when we ran the 5.3, we ran the 5.3 with a low buck truck camshaft. We put the G42 turbo on there. We only ran 15 pounds. It made 920 or something like that. So it's, you know, the camshaft is not going to dictate the power. The turbo is going to do that. 550 wheel, 600 wheel won't quick spool on the street. Have a T56. Okay, on a 6 liter. For 600 wheel horsepower, I would put the smaller of the two turbos that we have. I would pick I would pick a small cam like the low buck truck camshaft, and I would pick the GTX 3584. And on that note, it is time to go. Thank you guys all for showing up. Make sure that you go check out this new piece, chock full of Billety goodness. RichardHoldnerPerformance.com. Shout out to the guys at BTR and Vortec and AFR and all those guys for helping out. And we're working on a banner that's going to be back behind here. That's going to, so you guys will get to kind of see it in the background. It'll be cool. But I like all the guys that are helping out. Those guys are good peeps. I got to talk to them today. I'll see you guys all tomorrow.